Hello, everyone. This is News Now from the Belmont Journal, and we are continuing our series on small businesses in Belmont. Today, we're talking with Juliet Jenkins, a local Belmont resident and realtor, and I'm your host, Mike Crowley. So welcome, Juliet. The COVID pandemic is changing the ways many businesses are forced to operate, and I have no doubt that the same is true for you. But first, can I ask you to tell us a little bit about yourself, your involvement in the community, what you're actually doing here in Belmont, and how you've come to the real estate business?
Mike, thanks so much. Really appreciate you and Frederic and this incredible opportunity and series that you're running about small businesses. As we all know, during the pandemic, particularly our retailers, our merchants in all of our different squares have been having a much harder time. So your spotlights between champions and rankatories, some of them I get to discover and some of them I get to learn a little bit more about. I've greatly enjoyed them. I am an active member of the Belmont Center Business Association because my company, Leading Edge Real Estate, which has been there for maybe 4 years, is centered right near Chocolate Dream and right near Belmont Cafe. And it really has helped me open up another avenue in town. I've been here since 1994 from Cambridge and Connecticut before that. I raised my 3 kids in the public schools. I've been an active volunteer in preschool boards, in school foundations and PTO enrichment programs. Most recently, I have been chairing in the past the Belmont Cultural Council. I'm a town meeting member. I participated in the FBE Spelling Bee and Trivia, although we were not a huge success. And I'm an active board member in the Women's Club. All of these activities greatly feed into my personal and professional sense of self-being and goals. I was a classroom teacher for about 10 years and did experience burnout.
Was that here in Belmont, Juliet?
I only taught 1 year in Belmont. Most of my time was in the Newton Public Schools. And I also taught at Boston University, trying to get more undergrads to consider the teaching field. And I applaud our teachers. It was an incredible learning experience, and I enjoy the opportunities I get still today to work as a one-on-one tutor. But as far as getting into real estate, I believe that my facility with organization and finances and numbers led me to consider going into sales. My dad was actually, and my brother, big in the advertising business. So in all of my volunteer roles, I've always been the marketing person, writing the press release, trying to make the public aware of activities and programs, previously always for nonprofits. And now I work with my sellers, and my company has great support with marketing. I'm trying to help figure out what the audience is for a specific property. And I work with my buyers on trying to help explain and orient them to this challenging real estate market in the Belmont area since the 1990s, but now Greater Boston has become ever more popular and homes have become ever more important.
So Juliet, let me ask you, has COVID dramatically changed the buying and selling experience? And is your business more difficult than it's been in the past?
Wow. COVID has changed so many things. It's changed rentals, it's changed sales, it's changed location, where people think they want to call home. I sold a home in Lexington last year, and they had some friends who are moving in from out of state who wanted to buy in Lexington again this summer, and started in about March. I was the one person, when I could, making appointments, sending videos to them in New York because they couldn't even travel here. And I had to get good at holding the video camera, holding my phone without, getting seasick and giving them a sense of what they might be seeing. And I remember we worked hard on, I was coming out of the car so they could really get a sense with 360 of what the street looked like. Google View is one, but really having me talk to them while we're going. And in Lexington is a perfect example of a community that shot up in popularity. Belmont always, but the year before, so I guess that was the summer of 2019, there were many single families on market, and my buyers had plenty of time to consider, to negotiate. In 2020, there was one figure from November to November, the prices in Lexington for single families went up 18%. So what Lexington had to offer, even over Belmont, is larger lots. All of our sudden, with the kids being home and the parents being home, the idea that people weren't going to parks, didn't have a playground, but they had this opportunity to be in their own place. So that was a big change. Additionally, we have done a lot of Zoom. Like today, I actually really appreciate, especially with my buyers, the opportunity to share my screen, catch them at some point in time in their own turf. I really get a sense of what they love about their current home, why they're moving, and it actually adds, it's been a surprising add benefit to the process. In particular, to go through all the paperwork, there's a lot of consumer protection. There's a lot of information that the state gives about the purpose of home inspections, about the lead paint disclosures, and most importantly, the role of the real estate agent, if I am your buyer's agent, versus the person hosting the open house, who knows a ton about the property, but more likely than not has a contract with the seller. And their goal is to maximize the exposure and ultimately the sale price for the seller, not necessarily the interest of the buyer.
So Juliet, it sounds like COVID is making things a little bit more complicated than the past. Do you have any special advice for buyers and sellers in today's market?
Education.
Okay.
There's a lot that you can do yourself. It turns out my brother is just selling his house in Connecticut and has his agent and has his stager. But I'm talking to him and his wife, my sister-in-law, about going to the open house yourself, really looking at photos online, especially as a seller.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've lived in your place for 20 years, 30 years like me, and you haven't thought about what are these new buyers, new families needing. They need electrical outlets. We have so much more technology than some of our older homeowners care about. So talk to people you trust. Word of mouth seems to be the largest way people end up finding their sales agent, their listing agent, and their buyer's agent. And try and get educated. Online is the best way to start. But really, once you start talking to Mike Crowley, Juliet Jenkins, a lot of people, you'll learn about people's war stories and more recent successes.
So I do want to ask you, Juliet, has the market changed much with COVID here in Belmont?
Yeah. So what happened is in 2020, we had almost no sales in March, April, May. I had 2 or 3 that I was closing, but we just had very few sales.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, that's our busiest time of year, our spring market. That's when everyone's coming out from hibernation and going to look at houses. What happened? It shifted. So from June to December, we actually caught up. We had almost the same number of sales in the entire year, maybe a little bit less, but almost the same number. Not all of them were on market.
Okay.
Many sellers got nervous about having the public come in. So they talked to their trusted agent and they said, do you think there are any buyers out there? Do you have any buyers? Can you find some? So I don't have to have an open house. That was a big change.
Mm-hmm.
Some condos struggled a little. So we have had a lot of people who knew they wanted to be in Belmont. The commute to the town was so important to them. So some families have taken our multifamilies, and the second and third floors have become glamorous and gorgeous. And they may have raised the roof, but that third floor is gorgeous. And they've done beautiful, beautiful kitchens and made office space. So they're 1,500 square feet, 1,600 square feet, like a single family. Well, especially at the beginning of COVID, no one wanted a condo. Everyone wanted their own door, their own backyard. I think our numbers in Greater Boston are already going down for the virus, but that's been the emphasis on single families. and the decline, particularly of those beautiful second and third floor condos, was an interesting 2020 situation. I think this year, in 2021, there'll be a lot to see about have people realize that these are valuable, being close is valuable, our parks are open, there are so many conveniences of our town, and so that maybe the condos will come back in terms of priority and importance. But some of those buyers, probably in the $700,000 range, took me out to Concord this year, or took me out even further. My company is based in Melrose. We have offices in Reading and Wakefield. So some of our buyers that typically would never have left the Belmont, Arlington, close-in area have been more flexible and willing to go further.
So Juliet, something else I wanted to ask you about. Belmont has more difficulty than some communities in meeting the housing needs of all income groups. Do you have any thoughts to share about that?
Definitely an important issue. And I applaud some of the people who are working tirelessly on this. We have some amazing people. I'm a town meeting member, so I've heard some of the Belmont Housing Trust members speak, and some of them, this is their professional job while volunteering. It's complicated. We have some public housing in Belmont, and we're not sure if our public housing is even maximizing the opportunity to house as many people as possible. So there are some discussions on our older public housing units that maybe we can increase the density there. Town meeting recently approved with the developer a certain number of affordable rate rental units and sale units that will be up at McLean, but more needs to be done. And there are some issues in front of our zoning board now, and there are some active participants, some abutters that have their watchdog eyes, something that I think was threatened at McLean and also with the Silver Maple Forest, I'm forgetting, right near Cambridge, that whole property that the Belmont Citizen Forum helped work on in their goal. But there's one right now, 140B development plan in town. There's a couple of other issues presented to our zoning board. And I think we do have to bring great minds together, and perhaps as real estate agents, understand what's going on with the housing trust, because it's like any complicated process. There's state requirements, there's forms that need to be filed, and I would be glad to become more educated myself and help communicate the information. Maybe that's another person to interview.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking with us, Juliet. Happy home sales. Stay involved in Belmont, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. And if anyone has any questions, please feel free to reach out to me, Juliet Jenkins at Leading Edge.
Thank you, Juliet.